Before mountains touched the sky, before oceans covered the earth, and before a single star shone in the heavens, the world did not yet exist. There were no kingdoms, no forests, no rivers, and no living creatures. There was no sunrise to mark the beginning of a day, and no sunset to bring it to an end. Everything familiar to humanity was absent. Yet God was there. Before creation, before time, before the universe itself, God existed in perfect power and glory. He was not created, and he did not depend on anything outside himself. While nothing else existed, God remained eternal. Every galaxy, every mountain, every ocean, and every living creature that would one day fill the earth already existed within his perfect plan. The story of creation does not begin with the world. It begins with God. And soon, by his word alone, the universe would come into existence. In the beginning, the earth was formless and empty. Darkness covered the face of the deep. No land could be seen. No mountains rose above the waters. No trees stretched toward the sky. The world existed in a state beyond human understanding. Everything was silent. Everything was still. Yet Scripture tells us that the Spirit of God moved over the face of the waters. What appeared empty was not abandoned. What seemed chaotic was not beyond God's control. The Creator stood at the beginning of all things, preparing to reveal his power through creation. The darkness was only temporary. The emptiness would soon be filled with beauty, life, and purpose. God already saw the finished world long before it existed. He saw the oceans, the forests, the animals, and the people who would one day walk upon the earth. And then the moment arrived when creation would hear the voice of its Creator for the very first time. Then God spoke, "Let there be light." At that instant, light burst into existence. The darkness that had covered creation was broken. Brilliant light filled the universe at the command of God. There was no struggle and no delay. Creation obeyed immediately. For the first time, the world was illuminated. What had been hidden in darkness was now revealed. The first act of creation had begun. God looked upon the light and saw that it was good. It reflected his order, his wisdom, and his purpose. The age of darkness was giving way to a world prepared for life. This moment marked the beginning of everything that would follow. The heavens, the earth, the seas, the stars, humanity itself. All of it would be built upon the foundation established on this first day. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. After creating light, God established a pattern that would shape the world forever. He separated the light from the darkness. The light he called day. The darkness he called night. For the first time, creation moved according to order rather than chaos. A rhythm was born. Day would give way to night. Night would give way to day. Again and again, without fail. This simple cycle would one day guide every living thing on earth. It would determine seasons, harvests, journeys, and the passage of time itself. Nothing was random. Everything reflected God's wisdom and design. The Creator was building a world where life could flourish. And as the first day came to an end, creation stood ready for what would come next. A new day was beginning. And God's work was far from finished. On the second day, God spoke once more. He created an expanse between the waters. A vast space stretched across creation. This expanse became the sky. For the first time, the world possessed a great canopy above it. The heavens extended from horizon to horizon in breathtaking majesty. Though no human eyes yet existed to see it, the beauty of creation continued to unfold. The sky would one day carry clouds across the earth. It would hold storms, winds, and rain. Birds would fly through it. People would look upward and marvel at its greatness. Every detail served a purpose. Every part of creation was being carefully prepared. God was not merely creating a world. He was creating a home. And with each passing day, that home became more complete. The world was beginning to take shape. The waters above and the waters below were placed within their boundaries. Order replaced disorder. What once appeared empty and undefined now followed the command of its creator. The foundations of nature were being established. The future cycles of clouds, rain, rivers, and oceans all depended upon what God was creating during these early moments of history. Nothing happened by accident. Every detail reflected divine wisdom. Creation moved forward according to a perfect plan. The earth was being prepared for life long before life appeared. And as the second day drew to a close, the universe stood ready for another act of creation. Greater wonders were still to come. On the third day, God turned his attention to the earth below. The waters that covered the world gathered together at his command. As they moved aside, dry land emerged. For the first time, mountains rose above the waters. Valleys stretched across the landscape. Cliffs, hills, and plains took shape beneath the hand of the Creator. The world was no longer hidden beneath endless waters. A new landscape appeared. God called the dry ground earth, and the gathered waters he called seas. The foundations of continents were established. The stage was being prepared for the countless forms of life that would soon inhabit the planet. And God saw that it was good. The seas spread across the face of the earth. Great oceans filled vast basins prepared for them since the beginning. Coastlines formed. Waves rolled across the waters. Deep places and shallow places appeared. The beauty of the planet continued to unfold. Though the seas were still empty of living creatures, they already displayed the power and creativity of their maker. The oceans would one day sustain countless forms of life. They would shape climates, nourish ecosystems, and inspire wonder throughout human history. Every shoreline, every bay, every ocean current existed because God commanded it to be so. Creation was growing more magnificent with each passing day. Yet one important thing was still missing: life itself. Then God spoke again. This time, the earth responded with life. Grass spread across the plains. Plants covered the ground. Flowers bloomed in brilliant colors. Trees rose from the soil and stretched their branches toward the sky. Fruit-bearing plants appeared throughout the world. Forests began to cover mountains and valleys. The once barren earth became vibrant and alive. Every plant produced according to its kind. Every tree carried seeds for future generations. Life was designed not only to exist, but to multiply. The planet was being transformed into a place of beauty, abundance, and provision. For the first time, the earth was clothed in green. And God looked upon his creation and saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. On the fourth day, God placed lights in the heavens. The greatest of these lights was the sun. Brilliant and powerful, it would govern the day and bring light to the earth. Its warmth would nourish plants. Its light would reveal the beauty of creation. The rising and setting of the sun would one day mark the rhythm of human life. Generations would wake beneath its morning light and rest as it disappeared beyond the horizon. The sun was more than a source of light. It became a sign of God's order within creation, a reminder that the Creator ruled over both heaven and earth. As its light spread across the world, the beauty of creation became even more visible. The heavens were growing more magnificent with every passing day. Along with the sun, God created the lesser light to govern the night. The moon appeared in the heavens, reflecting light into the darkness. Then countless stars filled the sky. Thousands, millions, billions beyond human imagination. They stretched across the universe like a vast tapestry of light. Future generations would navigate by them. Farmers would mark seasons through them. Dreamers would gaze upward in wonder. Yet every star existed because God spoke it into existence. What humanity would spend centuries trying to understand, God created with ease. The heavens declared his glory. The stars proclaimed his power. And the universe became a testimony to the greatness of its creator. On the fifth day, the waters that had remained silent suddenly came alive. Fish filled rivers, lakes, and seas. Great creatures moved through the depths. Schools of fish traveled together through the waters. Life now existed where only emptiness had been before. The oceans became vibrant and active. Every creature was formed according to God's design. Each possessed unique abilities, behaviors, and purposes. The seas that once reflected only silence now pulsed with movement and energy. Creation was becoming increasingly diverse. The world was no longer merely beautiful. It was alive. And God blessed the creatures of the sea, commanding them to multiply and fill the waters of the earth. Life did not remain confined to the seas. God also filled the skies. Birds soared through the heavens for the very first time. Small birds crossed valleys and forests. Great birds glided through the open sky. Wings spread against the wind as creation took to the air. The heavens that had once stood empty now carried life in motion. Their songs echoed across the world. Their flight added beauty and wonder to creation. Every species reflected the creativity of its maker. No two were exactly alike, yet all existed according to God's perfect design. The skies, like the seas below, were now filled with life, and God saw that it was good. On the sixth day, God turned once again to the land. The earth brought forth living creatures of every kind. Animals appeared across plains, forests, mountains, and deserts, large and small, strong and gentle, wild and tame. Life spread across every corner of the world. Herds moved across open grasslands. Creatures roamed through forests. Others climbed rocky cliffs and distant hills. Each animal possessed a role within creation. Each contributed to the balance of the world God was forming. The earth was now filled with movement and life. Yet the greatest act of creation was still ahead, a creation unlike anything that had come before. By the sixth day, the world had been transformed. The skies were filled with birds. The seas teemed with creatures. The land overflowed with animals. Forests covered mountains and valleys. Rivers flowed across the earth. Life existed everywhere. What had once been empty and dark had become vibrant and beautiful. Every part of creation worked together in harmony. Nothing existed without purpose. Nothing was forgotten. The wisdom of God could be seen in every detail. Yet one final step remained before creation would be complete. A being who could know the Creator. A being who could reflect His image. The moment humanity would enter the story was about to arrive. Then God did something unlike anything He had done before. After creating the heavens, the earth, the seas, the plants, and every living creature, He announced a new purpose. Let us make mankind in our image. For the first time, creation would include a being capable of knowing its Creator. God formed the first man from the dust of the ground. Unlike the animals, this creation held a unique place within God's plan. Then God breathed into him the breath of life. The man became a living being. His name was Adam. Humanity had entered the world. Adam opened his eyes to a creation already filled with beauty and abundance. Mountains stood across the horizon. Rivers flowed through fertile lands. Life surrounded him on every side. Yet the greatest gift was not the world itself. It was the relationship God intended to have with mankind. A new chapter in creation had begun. Humanity was different from every other living creature. Animals could move, hunt, and survive. But mankind was created in the image of God. People could reason. They could create. They could communicate. They could love. They could choose. Most importantly, they could know their Creator. This unique relationship set humanity apart from everything else in creation. God gave mankind dignity, purpose, and responsibility. Human life was not an accident. It was intentional. Every person carried value because they reflected something of the Creator Himself. From the very beginning, humanity was designed for fellowship with God. The story of mankind would become the central story of the Bible. And it all began here, with Adam standing in a perfect world, created by a perfect God. God blessed Adam and entrusted him with a remarkable responsibility. He was to care for the earth, to cultivate it, to oversee the living creatures. Creation was not given to humanity for destruction, but for stewardship. The animals, the forests, the rivers, and the land itself were gifts from God. Adam was called to rule wisely under God's authority. This responsibility revealed something important about God's design. Humanity was never meant to exist apart from its Creator. People were created to work alongside God's purposes. The earth was a home prepared by divine wisdom, and mankind was invited to participate in its care. It was a relationship built upon trust, purpose, and blessing. The world stood ready for humanity to flourish within it. By the seventh day, the work of creation was complete. The heavens stood in their glory. The earth was filled with life. The seas, the skies, and the land all reflected the wisdom of their Creator. Nothing was missing. Nothing remained unfinished. God looked upon everything He had made, and it was very good. Then God rested from His work, not because He was weary. The Creator of the universe does not grow tired. Rather, His rest signified completion. The work was finished. The seventh day became holy, a day set apart, a reminder that creation was complete and that God's purposes had been perfectly accomplished. Peace filled the world. Harmony existed throughout creation. Everything stood exactly as God intended. The first world was unlike anything humanity has known since. There was no suffering, no violence, no fear, no death. Creation existed in perfect harmony with its Creator. The earth overflowed with beauty. The skies were clear. The rivers flowed freely. Life flourished in every direction. At the center of this perfect world stood mankind, created in God's image and invited into fellowship with Him. It was the beginning of humanity's story, a world filled with hope, purpose, and peace. Yet the Bible's story was only beginning. Soon another chapter would unfold, a chapter involving choice, temptation, and the future of the human race. But for this moment, creation stood complete. The heavens and the earth declared the glory of God, and everything was very good.